Hello, good evening, and welcome to a new food4Rhino webinar. Today with the guys from Design and Develop, Trenton Jones and Alberto Franco. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And they will talk about the suite of tools available in Botcha for Rhino for efficiently create shoes in Rhino 8. So the Botcha is already available for the newest Rhino 8 version. And the aim of Botcha is to allow you to have a twin model of footwear or of shoes. So you can start from a last, flatten it, and start the journey of modeling it in 2D, then map it back to 3D. Creating digital twins also helps reaching sustainable objectives because you don't have to print or create so many physical models, and also improve communication with the designers, suppliers, customers, etc. As speakers, we have Alberto Franco. He's a software architect at Design and Develop, and he supervises all the development and directions of Botcha for Rhino and Jevero. And he's a computer scientist. And Trenton Jones is a project manager at Design and Develop, and he's in charge of Botcha for Rhino for the project. He has a degree in industrial design from Arizona State University and has worked for Adidas Advanced Creation Technology team for more than 6 years. This webinar is being recorded, so if you miss a part of it, you will be able to watch it later on this same link. And also remember that there is, on the right side of your screen, there is a chat panel. Feel free to use it during the webinar, post there your questions, your feedback, and then during the last 10-15 minutes of Botcha's presentation and live demo, I will pass all these questions and feedback to the speakers, and I hope there will be enough time to answer this. Otherwise, of course, if you visit their food4Rhino page, you can also find their support email addresses and an official website with forum, etc. So, Alberto, Trenton, many thanks again for participating in one of our food4Rhino webinars, and feel free to start with the presentation. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Carlos. So I'll share my screen and start with the presentation. And so as Carlo already introduced us, I am Alberto, and I am the software architect in charge of Botcha. And I want to give you a brief overview what the product has become, let's say, in these last 2 years. And then Trent will show us some features in action. And so to start off, what is Botcha? It's a tool that at the beginning, a year ago, we were a bit unfocused, but we refocused very much into footwear development that we are pretty much very knowledgeable about. And it adds number of features to Rhino, like last flattening, remapping tools, some specific texture management for footwear in general, modifiers, and then within the latest version we've added colors and swatch management, last management with grading, flattening, and various deforming tools. And last but not least, we have abilities of creating lacing and stitching for ease of modeling the overall shoe. A bit of the changes of what happened in the last year. We released the beta version in December 2022 with the flattening, with the last flattening, the 2D, 3D mapping, and the soft editing that we've implemented. We've taken with that the feedbacks from the users that have started using the tool, and we've implemented therefore the the requests that came, like the stitching tool. So quick way to create stitchings, quick way to create laces that are kind of the most pain points, I would say, in the creation process for the digital twin. And then we've added parametric modifiers that helps pretty much with the uh, last minute changes, so that you can, if you build your model with the modifiers, you can change the thickness of material, change how a shape would look like without having to remodel it. And then this latest release that we had in January, we added last grading and in general more last tools, color management, which means that you can import, for example, Pantone swatches, color swatches, if you're wanting then to do all the nice renderings and design inside of Rhino. And we've added also abilities of attaching accessories to a mesh, so that you can, for example, you have an eyelet, a rigid eyelet, and you can attach it, move it onto your parts. And last but not least, of course, we've added Rhino 8 support, and to have a deep integration with Rhino 8, both on Windows and on the Mac. And a bit of the future, what we are looking for to release in around May as a time frame. We're adding bill of material export and support. Then we're adding bindings between parts. So you have two parts, how they bind them together, like if you want to create a stitch and turn or overlaps or and such. We have a retopo mesh snapping for workflow. If you have like again last minute change, you need to snap your geometry to a new last. We've added functionality for that. And then we have some more workflows oriented towards the concept design, so a little bit early in the process, with the ability to integrate Rhino with other tools that designers are more familiar with, and that's a bit like the roadmap until let's say May. And with that, I leave it to Trent to start showing a bit what we did with the tool. So
for sure. Thanks, Alberto. Yeah, let me go and take it over. And again, thank you, Carlos and McNeel, for letting us be a part of this. I need you to stop sharing your screen, Alberto, so before I can. Let's get into it. Okay. Cool. What do we got? We got nothing. Yeah, so here we go. We got Rhino 8. I think one of the cool new features that Alberto mentioned, which again, I kind of like to see as well, is again, looking at designers and looking at kind of what they would be working on, and trying to speed up the process a little bit and finding those kind of points. So like creating palettes and stuff like that. So if you're an illustrator, for sure, like you have all your set palettes here, and then being able to bring these in. So and we know a lot of brands already have their kind of palette sets and those pieces. So you do have the ability to import a swatch. You can be able to, but maybe just, let's see, if I go to the swatches, these are like the stock swatches. It does come with like a stock swatch in there that we've kind of given you. We also, if you do have the other ones, we'll just use some like let's kid stuff as well. So usually it'll land with inside of the list. You can see I've brought in a couple different ones. And if we kind of highlight them, it's going to be whatever name that name of the specific swatch had. And then you do have the ability to kind of search as well within inside of the list. But the functionality is kind of straightforward, similar to kind of some other systems. Let me just kind of snap it right here. You do have the ability, if I kind of turn a model on and I'm in this kind of rendered mode, and you can see if I want to override something, I have the ability to override that material as well as could just make sure we're going to assign it to this one. We'll give it to a new one. If I double click it, it should be updating the color. As you can see, it's going to actually make a duplicate of that material. If I want to, again, override this material, it's going to override that same one while I'm still on there. So really quickly, you can start to color up some stuff and be able to add kind of more depth to your models as well. So that's kind of just one of the small updates we definitely did in the panels kind of piece. And we wanted to kind of give that to you guys as well. The next piece that I kind of wanted to talk, and I guess it is our kind of bread and butter, is always the remap. And if I pull up our toolbar as well, you can kind of see we got the new we have some new icons that are now the same. There was a little bit of difference between the Mac and the PC build, so we kind of unifies those with the new SVG imports. So awesome to see that you guys did that, and then that allowed us to kind of make some more unified approach with our icons as well. So I'll pull this guy up. We do still have the same kind of features in there that we've kind of shown before, and that you've maybe seen on our workflow videos. And if you haven't watched those, I would definitely say check those out, because we're not going to be able to have enough time in this session to kind of go through all the features and all the stuff. But this one is the one I wanted to point out. This is the Remap tool. One of the main focus was taking a last, obviously getting it to a certain stage, using the UV editor to unwrap the mesh and getting it to that point. Usually what we'll have is, as well as a series of meshes that represent parts on a shoe. So if we had these kind of isolated, and it'll kind of make it a little bit more sense if we had this kind of toe cap and a toe liner as well, and they're at a lower topology, so there's going to be some interaction that's happening. So that was one thing we wanted to focus on, was meshes, and doing meshes at a lower topology as well. And then if we activate this tool, we kind of get a series of commands, or a series of pieces. And one of the new pieces is maybe about the strategy. It's a little different, but you do have an option of using just the UV map, which is our traditional one, and the skinning, which is a little bit more pre-computational, a little bit faster, but they are going to be pretty much the same. But we kind of did that to support also these lower topologies. And it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it works with history. We also have a grasshopper node for this kind of component, so you can kind of set this up in a parametric method. I'm going to select my objects, and then I'm going to select that source mesh, and I'm going to select my topology, and then it's kind of remapping it back up. The key piece is the source mesh and the target mesh have to have the same topology and the same UVs. And that's kind of a critical part to making sure that workflow of remap is actually functioning. So those pieces, I mean, really kind of help. And you could see if I kind of do the pull it out of the oven, as they do on the cooking shows, if we did like actually seeing like a 3D mesh in here, and seeing like, yeah, all of this stuff essentially was flown kind of back up from the actual base mesh that we had there, and working our way up in these kind of layers of structures as well. We definitely had some, like Alberto had mentioned earlier, we did implement some new stuff called two commands. There's B, all of our commands are going to be under B underscore, as well as the feature of array on mesh and copy on mesh. So that's more specifically when we get to the point of like these little eyelets, or if we had a BOA system or some type of hardware we needed to place on a mesh as well. So I actually have kind of another one up for this one in particular. And this kind of dabbles its foot into the grasshopper a little bit as well. So what kind of piece? So I just have my favorite, always the torus, the mesh torus, the donut, but you can take this as an eyelet or whatever kind of geometry you want. And specifically with these commands, what we have is we're using kind of two different ways. We've we've kind of implemented that you can use the curve and you're going to array along that curve, which is along a mesh, as well as points. So this is kind of really nice because then you can also edit, add points, things like this, and make sure that particular geometry is staying its actual same sizing, and being able to just simply place it on the model using its kind of vertex normals as well. So one of the things I kind of have in here is, again, we can see kind of the as we showed before, some of the remap, the copy on mesh, array of mesh is also inside of the Grasshopper tools, as well as Camel Clark. We added some stuff in here that was just more or less utility stuff that we needed. And then being able to kind of visualize these out. We do have the ability to we have two different methods with the array on mesh, which is kind of cool. I mean, you do have the ability to kind of change the values and modify the distance and change a couple things between two different methods that you would kind of essentially approach to it. As well as with the points, you do have, like, if I simply have a point on a mesh, it's going to try to follow that normal direction of wherever that lands. So I think this is definitely a helpful tool when just getting parts that are already kind of pre-made or even ready to go. But this kind of also gives you the foundation for getting more into like the lacing part, and another part that we've also kind of updated and really tried to approach a little bit differently. That with the laces, since our focus is back into this real footwear area, and using this kind of example, what we would do is make sure that I would actually have some lace constraints. So I'm just showing the geometry because that was just the Grasshopper preview that I had up. Showing and then adding these constraints is essentially just adding eyelets like we would add for where the lace should go through. And there's a couple different ways that we've implemented the lacing these constraints. So if I call up the command B lace constraints, and that's kind of the first step in the creation of the laces, we want to focus in on that one. And usually we'll grab that kind of base mesh or that base last that we have, and then be able to add, and you'll see that there's kind of these like kind of circles that I'm adding, and those are kind of just regular kind of standard eyelets as well. I do have the ability to do a couple different cool things, which we implemented, which was the tunnel, which kind of acts like a lace loop or a tongue loop. I think those are very in particular kind of interesting to try to get this geometry to create a curve that is actually going through there. And that looks like just similar to the kind of a mesh pipe or something like that. It's essentially acting like a pipe within inside of it. So, and I could always drop it. It's going to leave them there as kind of a visual, and I can always hide these later on, and I wouldn't necessarily need them. So I would continue just going through and creating these constraints very quickly. If I change back to the eyelet, and we'll just quickly kind of add the ones. So once I've done that, I've kind of set that foundational piece. And the reason why we're also picking up this mesh is so that we know what the geometry, how we should kind of interact with the geometry. And it's probably going to get you at least like 85% of the way there. We know that there's still like adjustments and tweaks and things. So we try to keep it also at a lower topology with quads as well. So if, again, I'm going to go into the lace create part, and the lace remove objects command is just removing any constraints that I just created. It won't necessarily get rid of any laces that you've created. This pop-up, you'll get the kind of preset sections that we do have in place. We did a series of round, flat, and square. Stitch is a little different. Stitch is that one that is actually having a piece added to it. And if I just go to round, I can set the width of it, or the diameter. The flat, we're also setting the width and the thickness. Pieces in tunnel, that just means this little actually eyelet piece and going through there and making sure that's in there. Extremities, I'll show like an example of the extremities later. This is just a little bit of like flair at the end that we added. And we also have a convert to sub D. So what it's going to be is actually a mesh with our modifiers. And I'm going to talk about the modifiers here in a minute. But we do have the ability to just be working directly in sub D. So when I hit OK, I'm going to get a series of kind of arrows pointing in various directions. And hopefully it's not too much for everybody. But we do have this kind of highlighting and preview kind of section. So if I had a lace that was kind of, if I wanted maybe to start from here and having it kind of enter and then exit, you kind of can toggle back and forth between how the lace should enter either up through the through the eyelet or actually going back down and in through the eyelet. So there's a couple of different ways that once we kind of get going, we're gonna it will understand that there is a mesh, and I can drop the tool at any time and see what it is. The reason why it's interacting with the eyelets is because I didn't necessarily put a bunch of tunnels in there to give it that height. But I'll show here in a minute that quick editing that we kind of mentioned as well. So you could always pick the tool back up. You could always drop it. I think that's always one thing I've noticed with other tools is sometimes you it will interact in a, I can't come back always to it and be able to make these edits. So if I essentially got myself here, and the reason we were still kind of interacting with some pieces is because I didn't allot for the piece, the eyelets, and that's okay because I can quickly, again, using the Control Shift and some of these other features now with the new gumball, change the alignment to the object as well as being able to modify these pieces so that we can do some quick edits and not have to worry too much about getting it right exactly. So, and this is where we're already working in 3D and at this point with essentially with the laces. And I think that's kind of a nice part that we get to in that you can edit. We do make some edits for you and try to get you there, but as well, like we do have you do have the ability to kind of take it and modify each one out so that it does fall a little bit more correctly on your model and being able to kind of change some pieces. The other things.
Yeah, just one thing, Trent, maybe if you go back to the other model.
Sure.
In this case, you created the laces in 2 different times, so they cross in the middle.
Yes.
But if you create them like in one go, they will try not to cross each other. So it will try to give you this kind of situation. But yeah, only if you create them in one go. So they will. That's just wanted to say that.
No, that's great. That's great. Yeah. And like you pointed out, again, if you don't do it in one go, it's okay. I mean, we've kept it out of that. And if there are subtle fixes that need to be adjusted and make more natural flowing laces, we try to leave that ability in there, and we try to leave that to the users as well. But we're always open to other inputs and what you guys think. The extremities that we kind of talked about is once I've gotten to the end, it'll add this little kind of lace in to it, which we call an extremity. Those kind of pieces are in there. One of the other things that I did mention that I don't know if it's kind of gotten its day in the sun, but I do love it, is the modifiers. So within inside of the properties, we've added kind of similar to like these kind of parametric modifiers that are directly in here. So you can see that we've added the subsurface to it, and we're doing some smoothing. And you have some options. We can also mimic the sub D as well as doing the Catmull Clark. I like Catmull Clark because it's one of those kind of standards that if I do jump to a different program, it's relatively close to the same everywhere. But we do have some other ones as well. We have some mirroring, some weld edges, unweld edges, array geometry. This one's a little bit different. This one's more like in your actual use space. And some of those other ones that you guys have seen before, just in a different format. So using the modifiers to do the remap or the UV transfer, projection, thicken, things like that, that we've also implemented in Grasshopper as well. So we do have kind of all these spaces, but we wanted to really stay focused somewhat in the footwear kind of piece as well. So focusing on some of these updates, laces, colors, and the stitches pieces. So if we want to take a look at stitches, they're relatively easy. I mean, they're set up as well, similar to the laces in the sense that we have some preset kind of actual kind of stitch creation. And there's kind of a couple ways to do it. If we just had a line, we would be able to just simply use that or use an edge of a surface to be able to double click, and that kind of creates it as well. Similar to the array, we're going to also be using the normals of this mesh. So we do have a command B, draw curve on mesh, which gives you a slightly different preview than your standard one. And then it'll try to interpolate that curve on top of the mesh. And once I have that, I can then execute like a small zigzag stitch. With the actual things, we can adjust some of the diameter, how far we're projecting off the mesh. Again, if we need to allot for some surface or some material, we can totally have that kind of into play. The next is then we would select that first one, and then we would select this kind of curve. And then it kind of creates that series of little stitching all along where we need it. And it's that kind of easy that we wanted it to either be able to draw lines that have nothing to do with topology and still be able to be influenced by the actual curve structures as well. So, I mean, those are kind of those kind of newer updates that we did. But we still have some of the other stuff in here as well. Just to recap, and it was soft edit. We've also seen this one kind of be used in different ways, and being able to edit. So this particular will only work with meshes. And once we execute it, it'll look like points are on, but it's actually just a series of grips that have been added. And then I can use just the mouse and be able to select and hold shift. And now I'm seeing this kind of affected zone, essentially, or like this area of influence that I can adjust either via the sizing. I can scroll up or scroll down. I think on the Mac you have to hold control. But you do have a couple options for visualization, either selected or heat map. And this, I think, is really nice if we start to like look at it from a different angle, and a designer says they want more more cutback, less of a reality, more of a design or a style line kind of piece. And what's really nice is if we kind of make these edits and we keep the original, we can always jump from 3D to 3D, or with this kind of piece that we already had in there, with that 2D other piece that you kind of saw in there as well. But those are kind of the main demos that I was going to give. I mean, Alberto, is there anything else you want me to show?
Yeah, the last grading.
Great job. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for keeping me on track. So this one, that grade piece, I'm gonna kind of hide all this. So this is commonly, as we would see last, like kind of come in an STL format. into Rhino, usually coming in as triangulated mesh. There might be holes, there might be something. Obviously, cleaning the mesh and making sure that there aren't any holes before doing this command will definitely help. In particular, also this command, we have to kind of be in this XY plane direction to have it function. So there's kind of some particulars, but again, it will tell you if you're a bit if your geometry is not in the right location for this function to work. So it will work on polysurfaces, surfaces, and sub-Ds, as well as meshes. And this is kind of where we've kind of taken over with some of the UI, that we're kind of restraining your selection to the mesh and then being able to select a heel point. Essentially, we're creating the last line that's actually going to be cutting through the entire last. Being able to now select the toe part. And then what it automatically did was that it actually calculated automatically for me the rough sizing, and then what actually my last kind of things, the length and the ball girth as well. Those, I think you can you could modify this as well. If this is, since I'm just selecting some points, I just kind of, it kind of generically takes it. But if you know the sizing of this last already, it kind of takes it forward. But sometimes that information is not always readily available to you. And then if we wanted to go up, say it's a 7.5, and now I want to go all the way up to a 12, like working on now maybe a basketball shoe, being able to say, okay, and what happened there is, again, we've created this kind of grading scenario so that your geometry will be graded appropriately for the actual sizing, depending on the sizing specifics that you did choose. So we do have a couple sizing in there to jump back real quick. I think it's going to maybe do on this little one. Yeah, this. Ooh. And again, it's based on what I'm putting in there. So again, if you do know the current size before, but we do have a couple different grading sizes. The French and the Mondo also point grading size within inside of it. But what we've seen pretty much generically is the UK's grading size throughout the industry. So again, just kind of showing that we can grade up. And once that we grade up, then we can also utilize this and kind of change the geometry as we go forward. If we needed to 3D print something that needed to be at a certain size, I think that's is mainly particular coming into for pattern text too as well. So and we did implement the last kind of changing a last, flattening a last, which we won't necessarily talk too much about today. Check out the documentation, and it's in there. They're pretty basic. They're not too complex about what they're trying to do. So, but always reach out if you guys have any questions or comments. So
yeah, one interesting thing maybe for the last grading is that the last need to be closed, as the one you had. We were just discussing this this afternoon. That yeah, usually for the creation of the digital twin, as Trent showed, we use these last that have don't have a bottom, but that will not work with the grading. So you need also that the bottom of the last. You need like a complete last, of course, that is used for measuring the ball girth. Then appropriately calculating how to apply the grading when then the last is graded up or graded down. And an interesting feature that is connected to that, it's that you can also grade along some other geometry. So if you have like something like a bottom unit, or even you already modeled something around your last, you can easily grade that together with the last. So say that you want to see how it looks, or quickly like your design, how it look in the bigger size and the smaller size. Usually I feel that's the most common scenario. You want to have a quick visualization of how you're working in 8.5. How does it look on a 14, 13? The shoe's gonna look very different. So you probably, that's the kind of idea that's behind this functionality, why we had that. But yeah, I would say it's more or less all the features. So
Classy. Very nice.
cool.
Do you use, by the way, also shrink wrap to close a last? So when you import it from a scan or mesh with holes, as Trenton mentioned.
Yeah, often the lasts. I mean, you've seen that the one Trent had that was not good geometry wise. Usually you have scanned lasts, and yeah, in Rhino 8 shrink wrap is definitely, usually it's shrink wrap and then quad remesh.
Quad
That's
remesh, and
the two like classic steps to get like a decent topology. And
Yeah,
then
on
yeah,
our YouTube, we did a video of how to retopologize it.
okay.
So using some curves, obviously, directly on it. When you're using the quad remesh to create edge loops, specifically creating those edge loops where we know patterns would be made. So right down the heel or in the toe or in the quarter area. So those are kind of nice to have those actual kind of guide curves there and an edge loop. So the topology will be kind of in that, wanting to flow in that direction so that when we do unwrap it, we're able to either hit the heel area or hit that kind of whole front toe area as well. So those are kind of the ways, the methods that we do and in working, but it should be able to also handle triangulated meshes as well. And some of the actual surfaces when we're doing the unwrapping.
Great. Yeah. These videos are on your website, right?
Yes.
So
on
to let the audience
YouTube.
know that, please visit Botcha's website, because there are many videos there showing some other workflows.
And yeah, and this is just, I mean, it's quad remesh. It's the Rhino feature. We haven't done anything. We just created, just created a tutorial on how to do it.
Yeah, well, many times we have the tools, but people invent new workflows with that tools. That's the interesting part.
Exactly. That is
the technology itself
bit...
is sometimes it's dumb. So
yeah, it's a little bit more specific, let's say, for footwear, because we're talking about last. So we're how to place the curve on the last.
That lines.
Yeah.
Cool. Very nice presentation and demo. We have a nice group of viewers. Some of them are our friends, usual suspects, such as René Meder, Tiziano Mafione, Nada Ashi, Podo Tools, Camila Pérez Zúñiga, Ricardo Gatti, Nowi, Todd Miller, Chandra Sajano, Sayana, sorry, Daniel Bachman from Sferin, Podo Tools, Aaron Porterfield, I said it already, Daniel Bachman, yes, from Sferin, Sal Coffey. Actually, he says, hi Trent, long time no see, and that he's been using Botcha since the beta version, and now he found it's so useful that he uses it every day.
Cool.
Yeah, there are a few questions. First will be mine. Have you also tried Botcha? Do you have any customers that use Botcha for other soft goods, such as bags, for example?
So we've... Oh, sorry. Yeah. If you want to go, Trent. No, I can go. Yeah. We've explored that, especially with sofas. Yeah, interestingly enough.
Okay.
Yes. Which somewhat they are conceptually similar to footwear, in the sense that you have like a 2D model, 2D unwrapped, whatever model, and then you build up like your parts around a sort of a shape, which it would be the last in footwear. And so we're exploring that area, but yeah, at the moment, let's say the hard focus is still on the footwear side, and to get those.
Okay, thanks for the answer. there is one person without name that was
Anonymous.
asking if there is an educational license of Botcha.
Yeah, through institutions, like usually with the universities, or let's say shoe schools that we know around Europe and the US. We've provided educational licenses to students. For example, in Italy we have a very good relationship with our Sartoria and the ITS Cosmo, which is nearby here. And then in Germany, there's an institute in Pirmasens that does the PFI that also has an institution for, and they have classes where they teach both Java and Botcha. And then in the US also, in Detroit, there's some people using Java. So we do provide, yes, definitely. And if, again, we usually go through the institution because it's easier to manage these sorts of things. But yeah.
Okay, so for this person, please contact the Botcha guys directly.
Yes.
And they will let you know what you need to do in order to get some edu licenses. Okay, there was one question by, sorry, from Topodo Tools, and they ask if the flattening is good enough to make real patterns on real lasts, even when the lasts are irregular orthopedic lasts with a leg part. So for orthopedic lasts. That are irregular.
Yes.
Yeah, it should be able to. We're using the similar as rigid as possible unwrapping methodology. And once those kind of flatten, and we've done some tests, Alberto, recently as well, trying again validating that that comment right there, that we want it to go directly to pattern, being able to get it. You do have to do some offset and make sure, because it is a very tight fit of the UV. So the UV being a little different, always and ever, than an actual pattern. So there'll kind of have to be some adjustment still. And I think that's where pattern makers are still a key function in that role when making orthopedics. So, but again, if it is an asymmetrical shoe, that should be more than fine. It doesn't matter the geometry. It just needs to have, like I said, some curves so that we can unwrap it, and some UV seams. So that it has the ability to be cut in the particular places, just like you would tape up that last and then cut. That's exactly what we're kind of replicating.
Yeah.
He can also download your evaluation version and try it himself.
Yes,
true. And validate it. Yeah, send it out to a laser cutter, cut the material, strobel, do all the good stuff to make that shoe as well. Yeah. And then let us know how it goes.
Yeah, the important part that I have seen, we have done very recently some tests, is that the material thickness is taken into consideration, because if the shape of the pattern mimics exactly what you want to cut. If you do that, so you draw, for example, in 2D, remap in 3D, have that with the thickness that is proper, then you will have a pattern that is very close to what you would do. Then, of course, I mean, you probably want to adjust for material stretch or whatnot, but let's say the cut piece.
Pick it up in Jevro and start patterning on top of it as well. So, yeah.
Cool. What else? Okay, yes. Todd Miller, no, sorry, Rene asks if the grading, if you need to do it one by one, or if you can grade many sizes at once.
That's a planned feature to have generate a full size run for last. At the moment, it does one by one. So you can kind of there's a macro version of the command, so you can kind of script it if you want. But yeah, we don't have a UI yet for like saying, okay, this is an 8.5 and I want it from 3 to 14, whatever. That's the planned feature for the coming release. So yeah.
Also, what's up, Renee?
Sorry?
I just said hi, Renee.
Okay.
To him out there.
Well, I think we will all meet in a few weeks in Munich, right? At that Performance Days event.
Oh yeah, no,
Okay.
I'll be away, so I won't be able
Some
to
of us will be
join.
there.
Yeah. And Trent's gonna become a dad in a week or something.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. Less than that.
I don't know if
Yes.
to say congratulations or not.
No, yes, yeah, it's 100%. Congratulations.
No,
Anyways, this
congratulations.
is taking a turn. No, the webinar. No,
Yeah.
exactly. But no, very excited here.
Cool.
So I'll be a little preoccupied.
Yeah. It's tough. So related to grading, yeah, there are many. I mean, there are many algorithms for grading, no?
Yes.
So both Todd Miller and Podo Tools have more or less the same question. Which rules do you use, or what's the algorithm you are using? What
I
are the
don't re-
grading and where to find the grading parameters?
So I don't exactly recall how it's called because it's been a minute since I read the paper, but it comes from a last grading paper which is fairly new. And I would have to check, and maybe we can add it to the documentation exactly, like in references to the exact algorithm. But yeah, that's so we didn't invent it. It's from scientific paper from, I think, in a scope, could be.
In a scope, okay, they're in Valencia, right? Or in Alicante?
Yeah, in Alicante, I think.
Alicante.
And yeah, they published this algorithm, and we took that and thought, well, makes sense, and we implemented it. But I don't recall exactly the name nor the author of the papers, so I will have to check, and then we'll add it to the documentation. So
Documentation.
Yeah,
okay,
so that people
perfect.
at least know what it is.
What they are using.
Yeah.
One more questions. Aaron asks if you can do the grading in Grasshopper. Aaron,
Yes.
Yes. Perfect.
Yes.
So you have now like two interfaces, right? One for strictly Rhino users, and you have also ported all that tools to Grasshopper as well.
Yeah, in general, we try to, like, whatever we offer in Rhino, when it makes sense, to have that also in Grasshopper. So to have like whoever thinks that the feature is interesting can also be used in Grasshopper, so that we have like a feature parity between our Grasshopper components and the Rhino commands.
I think the one thing that's not there yet is lacing, because it is a little bit more complex in setting it up. But similar to the I'm looking at it right now, it's going to input that information, the last line, giving it a line, as well as the other geometries like Alberto mentioned. So like if there was already like the pre-made eye stays, everything is already, we can grade it up if we have the information for the node.
Okay, thanks. What else? Yeah, Sal Coffee asks if Botcha will merge with Devero in the future.
Not necessarily. I mean, we offer them as a bundle, meaning that yeah, if people want to buy them both, we offer them at a discount. But yeah, our idea is that they have different targets on average. Of course, there are situations when you want to use both, but yeah, I don't think that we will merge them. I think that in the future they may be like under the same umbrella, of I don't know, some sort of branding or whatever for as our footwear toolkit. But they will stay like two different
Different
plugins.
products, but you, of course, you can buy them, the two in a
Yes.
bundle.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, what else? Yeah, also a question by Aaron. If the quad topology affects the flattening.
Yes, the topology does affect the flattening, because the denser the mesh, the more the little the distortion will be
deviation on
reflected.
this.
Yeah, exactly. It really depends on the kind of use that you need to do with the output. If it's like for visualization purpose, you probably don't really care. Even the classic flattening that we've seen before is fine, even though it's not really precise. If you want to create a pattern or something like that, you probably want to be a little bit more dense. And the flattening works also with subds and NURBS. So you will be able to flatten also a NURBS or a flat or a subd surface. You will get a mesh out, but the flattening will actually give you like a 2D representation of your surface.
Okay, so it was from meshes, NURBS, and subds.
Yes.
Yeah, the main thing to remember when the quad mesh is the all like even spacing, even sizing. We want to make sure that it's kind of a more of an aquatic, like the structures of the quads, and not too stretched as well. Because if there are, like you said, deviation, when that kind of goes in there, we're going to try to keep the same 3D shape or the 3D spacing when we go down to the flat 2D, but again, if you're already super warped and or have an area where it's all bunched up of a mesh, it's going to try to get it as much, but there might be areas that have larger topologies that have more flex or more shape within it. So making it more even, I think, is the best kind of method as well. And you could set that within inside of quad remesh. Big shout out to you guys again. The settings of the quad size, I think, if they're relatively all about the same, and usually I use about 4 millimeters in sizing for my quad meshes. So just yeah.
Okay, thanks. One more question. Well, this time is a request. I don't think there is time today for that, because Abdul from India is asking if you could make a demo with a sole.
Yeah, we could do that.
But
I mean,
I think we don't have the time today. Maybe you can
maybe
put
another
a video on your website, or
Yes.
we can do a new webinar soon, right? In any case, Abdul, please contact Botcha directly, and maybe they have already something done for you, or they can make an online. They can meet online with you and show it to you, right?
Yeah, we are also working on that. Like especially internally, we use often like textures on outsoles, so to have like the ability of flattening a piece of the outsole where you want to have some textures, some 3D texture that in either 3D print or in the mold, you're gonna have these nice little details. We're working also on that sort of workflows to get them right.
Okay. Next question is by Ray Bauman. Can you edit curves directly moving on the surface of the last?
Yeah, let
Actually,
me
yeah.
share my
Go ahead.
screen,
Yeah.
and we can actually do one real quick. Yeah, so back to this shoe, if I actually shared. Like you guys saw, I had done the kind of B draw and mesh, and then being able to kind of draw a curve directly on it. We actually have a command which is edit that curve. It's going to ask for what it is, and then once you've kind of selected it, then you select these interpolation points, and then being able to edit that again, that location, and also by like adding points. It's going to show you the original one as well. But once you have selected that spacebar or enter, it's going to lock in what you wanted there. And then again, this could be mapped back down. If you can, you're working in a 3D space, you want to see it back into 2D, just using the remap. So yes, we thought about this.
Nice. And about the grading, also Ray Bauman asks if you can provide US grading.
Yeah. I mean, sure. It's yeah, it's half size difference from the UK, but yes, we can. So UK and US are the same, just like half size of different. So that's why at the beginning we did not thought about it. Very European centric, I guess, despite the trend in Arizona. Yeah, but definitely we can add that, especially if people and if there's different types of grading that we did not thought about, just send them to us and we'll implement them.
Okay. And okay, Camila is thanking you and giving you very nice feedback, saying that this is such a useful tool for footwear. Great that you are, great to see you are developing more and more features. Thank you. Rene is also congratulating you both for the webinar and Trent for his kit in 1 week, right?
Yes.
Although he won't sleep much.
Yes.
And
exactly.
yeah, Sal Coffee was already answering Abdul from India that Rhino offers many tools for creating soles. However, Botcha will primarily focus on the upper part. That's
Yes.
true, but yeah, actually, in the past, it was being used mostly for the soles, Rhino.
Yes.
Today, thanks to Jevero and Botcha, you can also model. I mean, you could also model the upper parts, but not so without such accuracy as you can today with Botcha and Jevero. That's accuracy for manufacturing.
Yeah.
And I think there are no more questions. Not that I see. If I've forgotten about any question, please contact the Botcha team directly. Trenton, Alberto, many thanks.
Thank you, Carlos.
We will see us soon, if not in Munich, in Italy, or in Barcelona, or in Arizona.
For sure.
Have a nice day and talk to you soon. Thanks also to the audience. And again, as the webinar is being recorded, if you miss a part of it, just refresh the page or go to the food4Rhino webinars playlist, and there you will find this very nice webinar. So have a nice day and talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Cool.